Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Coexisting the Podcast. My name is Aisha. I am your host. And in today's episode, we are going to be discussing and focusing on what it means to live in alignment, what it means to find meaning in life through getting more in touch with your values. With alignment, when I talk about alignment, I mean the choices that we make, the activities that we do are directly related to the things that spark joy internally within us. And we can conclude that the things that spark joy within us, they spark joy because they are directly related to our values. So the things that we find important in life. So we will be talking about our values, how to find them, why they are important to find, a bit of a philosophical perspective on it, and how you can also live them today. And I think when it comes to living in alignment with your values, that it's such a crucial thing to do for two reasons. So, one, if you don't know for sure in which direction you want to go, you can get more in touch with what that direction is by being more in touch with your own values, because your values are the things that are important to you, the things that you enjoy, the things that spark joy. And then by doing that, you can discover those activities that actually make you happy. And the other reason is that if, for example, you do already know in which direction you're heading and you're already in your daily life going after that, but you kind of deep down still feel like you could find more fulfillment, or you don't understand yet how you can design your life in a way that you're maximizing for your well-being, for your happiness, that by getting in touch with your values, you can find or directly ask yourself, what are the activities then that I can do that will make me feel more in touch with it? So overall, getting in touch with your values is very important wherever you are in your journey, because one, it helps you to be very clear and honest with yourself on what are those things that I find important. And I think in this age where we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people and comparing or taking inspiration from other people on things that we should be doing, that when you know your values, you also know these are the things that I find important. And maybe then that can also help you with being less involved with getting inspiration from other people or copy pasting what other people are doing, because you are unique and you have your own idea of what you think is important in life. But before we get into all of that, I want to tell you a bit of a story of myself and values, and how I got through the point of better understanding myself, being clear on what my values were and how I use that today. So there was a moment that I started to realize that I didn't feel like I was being authentic. And the reason why I felt that way was my standard way of operating within a room is that I will mirror people. So I will first feel it out how people are doing, how people are feeling, and then based on that, I will adjust myself. And why I do that, we don't need to get into it now. But what's important to know is that by having this realization through internal conflicts with myself, conflicts with other people, doing inner work, I started to realize, like, actually, what is important to me? Like, who am I as a person? And how do I go about finding that authenticity? And my usual way of approaching things is that I will try to find like the theory first. And then from the theory, I try to apply it in practice to learn more about how does it manifest. But in this case, I really didn't want to be so influenced by all of these theories or what people say that it is and how people say you should experience it. I wanted to take a different approach. And my approach this time was I wanted to get more in touch with myself. I wanted to understand what are the activities that give me energy, what are the activities that drain my energy. And through asking myself that question, I was able to be very clear that, hey, I get a lot of energy from doing creative things. So then I try to focus on spending more time doing those things that gave me energy. And by doing this process for some time, for some months, I started to realize that actually, like, now I'm ready to take that online test and look at what my values were. And surprise, surprise, all of those results from the free online test that I took were like, oh, you value creativity. And then I thought, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it gives me energy. I spend time doing it, I know that I value it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And by going through that process, I also realized that, values are things that are within us. It's not something that we have to make or that's external of us. And I was very happy that I went through that process in that way instead of finding like a list of values and then trying to fit myself into that. So by going through that, I also learned that you know, because it's already within me, I don't have to put so much effort into trying to find them and to design my life in a way that I am maximizing for my values. And that is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. That journey of finding meaning and finding value is one, something super unique to all of us, and two, it's not something that we have to try very hard for to get there. It's already within us. We just need to be clear on what it is and how can we be consciously designing our lives around it. Before we get into the house of value, I think it's good to spend some time talking about it from the philosophical perspective, because values is something that has a very big stage within philosophy, and there is a very good reason why that is as well. But in essence, philosophy looks at values as the motives behind purposeful action. So if we take that even apart a little bit, it means two things. One, there is some subjectivity when we look at values. So everybody has a meaning of what is useful and what is purposeful to them, because it's your life. You define what you find important. And the other side of it is the pragmatism. So it's about taking purposeful action. So you have to think of values as something that pushes action forward. And if we translate that to how we should use values in our lives, it's about doing the things that are meaningful to us. And one example that I really like to go back to, even within philosophy itself, is like if we look at people like Plato that would say or make statements such as pleasure is something that's bad. And the way that Plato comes to that judgment is because Plato had an opinion of what is the value of pleasure, because Plato would see pleasure as something that's intrinsically bad, because even if it's fun in that moment, the consequences of doing pleasurable things were not good in his opinion. And why I like to use this example is because, yeah, this is maybe for a very long time, people believe that this was the way because of a philosopher saying that, hey, this is the inherent value of a thing. It's not good. But what we actually can learn from this is that there is such a big subjectivity when it comes to values. Of course, there are general values that we should all live by, like, hey, it's good to respect people, it's good to be honest, it's good to be fair. But at the same time, you can also decide what values you live by. So you can have your own core values, the things that you feel like are inherently good or inherently bad. For example, for you, when you are on your journey toward meeting your goals. So creativity, for example, could be a value that's being encouraged. But the whole point is that it's you that decides. You decide what are the values that I have? What are the things that spark joy? How do I see values playing a role in how I design my life? Do I want to use values to inform these decisions, or do I want to design my life in a different way? So in that sense, like, I really like the way that philosophy looks at values, because it's all about subjectivity. It's all about pragmatism. It's all about informing your actions and going in a certain direction because of the motive that is underlying everything that you're doing. And without going too deep into it, that is actually the message that you need to remember, that values are subjective. It's yours. You decide what role you give it. Personally, I would say that finding my values and being clear on what they are completely changed the game when it comes to living an authentic and meaningful life, because I understood very clearly why I was doing the things that I was doing. And this made it very easy for me to make certain decisions in life. If I had to choose between doing something creative versus not doing something creative, I'm choosing for the creative activity because I know that I like to do creative things. It's the same that if you value spending time with your family, if you value that belongingness and that connectedness with a very specific group of people, and you know that, then it's very easy for you to choose activities that help you get in touch with that value. Before we talk about how to live them, first let's talk about how to find them. Because I think we all overthink this a bit too much. Values. I remember I was talking with a friend of mine and I was telling her like my discovery with values and like how I'm living my life through my values because I finally I finally put on paper like these are the values. And then she was like, "Oh my God, yeah." And then I thought, yeah, we were both like, yeah, like how are we realizing this now and not why didn't we realize it a long time ago? I think it's just like a topic that if you are not around people that talk about it, then you don't really think about it that much. But actually, when you do spend time thinking about it, it will like click immediately because it's such a natural part of life. It's such a natural way of us being, but we just don't spend the time thinking about it very consciously and writing down on paper and being like, yes, I choose this because it's aligned with my values. So let's talk about how to find your values. So, as I said, if you go back to that example, my way of finding my values was really very much so through living, like being, and just going through life and then paying attention to the things that give me energy and the things that take energy away from me. So I would say that you can take that approach. So that's like kind of a practice first approach. And then you go back to the theory. This works. I would say that it's up to you to decide how you want to go about being more clear on what your values are. So that is one option. The other option is to just take an online test. There are plenty online tests online. If you just look up core values, you will see a list of core values or these online tests that you can take, and then they will tell you what are your top 5 values, for example. And another thing is that you can also, like, depending on what type of person you are. So I'm someone that I prefer to do things on my own, like learn about myself on my own. But if you are someone that wants to involve other people, you can also ask other people, hey, people that know you well, of course, hey, what are the things that you think are really important to me? And then watch what they say, because people, of course, create a perception on you based on your behavior and also how they interpret it. I had a career coach. She helped me to like put straight what I wanted to do for a job. And she made me go around asking people like what they thought that I was good at. And then the responses that people gave were really pretty accurate. And then I didn't realize back then, but a lot of the things that people said actually are very close to my values that I had then. So people were like, yeah, you're very organized. That was one of my values back then. So yeah, I would recommend as well to like talk to people around you to see what they would say if you want. Otherwise, just take an online test or journal like what gives you energy, what takes energy away from you. The whole point is to be clear on what they are, because this is like a key information that you use to design your life. Designing your life meaning that you can reverse engineer it. You can know what gives you energy and you can actively choose to plan in those activities in your life so that you can optimize for experiencing that specific value. And then once you know what your values are, as I said, you also need to understand better, like, how do you embody those values today? So that is then the follow-up question that you ask yourself. Now I know what my values are. How do I embody them today? How can I improve at embodying my values? What can I do to live closer to my values? And when it comes to values, one thing that's very important to establish, besides the fact that they are already inside of you, is that they can change over time. Your values, just like you, can change. So as you grow, you will probably also shift a bit in your values as your identity shifts. So 3 years ago, probably the things that I found important back then were a little bit different than the things that I find important now. I definitely think that the majority is the same. But for example, creativity, 3 years ago, I did not really care about creativity that much. It's something that with time I started to think is more and more important to my life. And that's how it became my core value. And I'm also very much aware, even when I make decisions about my life that are based on my values, that in 5 years, they might shift a little bit and they might change. But that is okay because I'm also growing and I want my values to be aligned with the person that I am, because then it's useful and then it's meaningful to me. That's the whole point of values. So keep in mind that it needs to work for you. When you go on this journey of finding your values, when you go on this journey of trying to live out your values, keep in mind that you can change, your values can change, but that's okay because it's about the daily life. And now let's finally talk about what it actually means to live out your values. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Depending on where you are in your journey, you might want to approach this a little bit differently. So, the first question that you always need to ask yourself, as I said, is how do I embody my values already today? And once you know that, you can also already come up with a list of improvement points. So, if I say I'm living this value very well, but intelligence is also one of my values, and I don't think that I'm doing enough things today to live out this value, what are the improvement points there? Like, how could I live out this value even more? So, this is like when you're starting with the process to just go by your values and like asking yourself this question repeatedly and trying new things. If you are further along in the process and you're also already very clear on this is the value that I want to be optimizing for, then you also know that, hey, you should be laser focused on this value because probably you're okay with how the other ones are manifesting already today. And what is important in this is to not like burn yourself out. So when you ask yourself the questions of like, how can I embody this even more today? To take into account that when you start to live out your values and when you start to put in the action, it also has to be something that you will enjoy doing. So yes, I care about creativity, but I'm not going to enjoy painting because I don't want to paint. I don't want to do all of that. So in that sense, I know a lot of people that will go online and like try to find activities they can do to embody their values because they want to like, find out what other people are doing. And I used to do that as well. But like, you don't need that because you probably already know what's going to make you feel closer to that values. Like for me, I know that, hey, my way of getting close to intelligence is like reading because that's an activity that I will enjoy doing. Keep that in mind because it's about pragmatism, right? It's not only about what you find important. It's about, okay, if I were to translate that into action, what is then the activity that I would enjoy doing? What is then the thing that will really spark joy? Because remember, if you're going to start living it, it's something that becomes more regular and more regular in your life. And then in that sense, you want to make sure that it's something that you also enjoy. And you're not just doing it because you have to live out your value and you have to find meaning. The whole point of finding meaning is that it's your journey, it's your process. You decide what your values are, you decide what you put your energy on. You know what gives you energy, you know the things that drain your energy. It's all about aligning those things together. It's not about trying to do anything new, it's not about trying to reinvent the wheel and do crazy things that make you feel like this amazing. No, it's just about being clear on what gives you energy and then directly choosing to consciously do those things in your life. It's not a crazy difficult thing to do. It just takes conscious decisions to choose to go in a certain direction and to choose to get to know your values and to choose to put in the time to like thinking about how you can implement them in your life. I'm going to keep living my life aligned with my values because I realize it's really been helping me lately with feeling fulfillment in daily life. Like on a Monday evening, I feel great because I'm like, wow, I just spent 2 hours in the gym working out. I care about my health. I spent half an hour reading in the morning. I care about intelligence. I meditated. I care about my health. So that's how I try to translate it into my daily life. Nothing crazy, just like chill, easy vibes. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this information finds you welcoming it and that it helps you in your own journey. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at coexisting.irl in real life. And I'm posting a lot of content there. I've been working on it for some time and it's finally being distributed. So yeah, give it a follow, give it a like. Share it with your friends and family if you find it useful. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.